Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Ken, and today we are looking at something not so mini. Look at this guy. Ooh, it's gonna be good. We've got all the sides of all of our boxes to look at. There we go. We'll look at it closer. But before we do that, why don't you guys go ahead and like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. Do all those things you do for channels you want to support. We're going to dive way deep into this guy. We're going to take it apart. We're going to show you everything inside the box and inside the truck. So let's get to it. And this one's probably going to be a long one. So use the chapters below to skip around and see what you want to see. Well, here we have it, guys. This thing's looking sweet. Here's the box. You can go ahead and pause and look at it if you'd like. This is awesome. Definitely more comp oriented. Quick change underdrive transmission. You can literally just swap out your under and overdrives. Well, underdrive, not overdrive, but swap it out without dropping your whole transmission. That's pretty sweet. What else we got? What's on this side? Oh, all the beauty shots. Looks like we only come in one color, the black and red, but I mean, I'll take it, right? Channel colors all day. Looks like it includes a 110 brushless rock crawler and a radio system, but you need some batteries. 3S capable, that's pretty sweet. All right, guys, enough of this. Let's get it open. Boom. What do we got here? We got our manual. Looks like we got some beadlock ring stickers, I guess. Oh, man. That is cool. All right, hold on. So, nice protected bubble package. I love that. There's our transmitter. Woo! What is this? I don't know. Little spot to hide some things. I don't know what that's for. We'll have to look. We have, this is our first Redcat 110, so we're not experienced with any of the Redcat stuff other than the 118 Ascent that just came out, so this is all new to us. All right, let's look at this guy. Oh, I am excited. So excited. Boom. Snap, 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 snap. Oh, yeah. Let's go. What is this? Oh, let's get, what is this? What is this? I mean, we know what it is, but it's messing up our vibe, bro. Oh. Zippy ties all over. Well, there we have it. Ooh, buddy. This thing is looking slick. Oh, man, look at these little red accents here. Oh, I love it. All right, there's something else still in our box. Hold on, what is this? What is this? Some things and stuff. So here's everything that comes in the box. First, you've got this little intro pamphlet. Basically tells you how to get the truck up and running, set your, your radio adjustments, how to basically the newbie stuff, right? So if you're new, make sure you check this out. This is your first truck. You can also scan this QR code right here, and that will take you to the full manual. It's got the full exploded views, everything you need to know about the truck right there online. I dig that. Definitely makes it easy to just find stuff. I like online manuals. Usually when they're PDFs, you can search. You can like type in the search bar in the PDF and find certain things in the manual. So if you're looking like for drag brake, for example, just go to the PDF, type in drag brake in the search, and you'll go to the drag brake settings. It also comes with this, since this guy does come with a Hobby Wing Fusion. Okay, so there's some information there. And then we've got all this good stuff here. We've got a rear shock mount that you can set up in there. Got some hubcaps, Then we've got our underdrive gears. It comes with 20% underdrive already installed, but you can adjust it to a 10% or 0% underdrive if you'd like. If you're doing like a trailing rig or something, you might want to go 0%. If you're going to do some light crawling, you do that 10. And if you're hardcore, 20%. All right, these guys here are battery tray components, and then some body mounts. If you're going to switch out your body, you need some body posts. We have adjustable body mounts here, so that's cool that they include that. And of course, our transmitter and some slaps. Pretty straightforward though. That's what we get. No tools, so you don't have any little hex wrench or the T wrenches. Why not? None of that stuff. You're going to need a toolkit if you're going to work on this guy, so definitely pick up a toolkit and a good hobby grade charger. You know, want one of those? We have a video on some hobby grade chargers right over there. I think there's a link to a toolkit down in the description. I think that might be more for the minis though. Maybe we'll put one in the description specifically for this. We also like MIP tools. We use those a lot, so check out MIP tools. So again, tools, hobby grade charger, and then a 2S or 3S battery. And then some batteries for this guy here. This guy runs on AA's. You're gonna need 4. Okay, I know. Back to the truck, right? Let's go. So, looks like we got 2 body clips right here in the back. Oh man, look at this sticker. They give us a little problem, no problem sticker. I dig that. Wait, we still got, still got these. We got these. Snip, snip. Ooh. All right, let's get these body clips off and see what's inside here. And once those body clips are out, you can just kind of pull on this guy, clear the body posts basically. Lift it up, and it does pivot. We got some pivoting action, so that's cool. And then if you want to remove the whole cab, you can just pull the front off. You've got this little clip system. So I dig that for sure. Good little half cab. I love the graphics. Again, we're kind of a fan of the red and the black for sure. You can, that's our channel colors. All right, let's get into this. And there it is. So I guess I should talk about what this is about. So the previous Redcats, they were kind of more trail riggy or not as performance based, but they decided they wanted to move forward with a much more performance, precision style rig, carbon fiber chassis rails, brushless motor, real low center of gravity. This motor is super low in there. And just trying to hit all the points on a rig like this that make it more performance based, yet keep it at a really good price point. So this thing is coming in, at least at the time of release, $399.
Shut up and take my money.
Which is absolutely insane for a comp rig. It's got tons of upgrades that you would normally have to kind of do yourself, right? The brushless system, the carbon fiber chassis rails. It's got sliders already. These aluminum diff covers. They're nice machined aluminum diff covers. And just an overall really good setup for that price point. It's awesome. I absolutely love that they're able to give us something that will perform, but that isn't going to break the budget, right? You don't want to completely blow. I mean, you could charge $600-700 for rigs like this. Now, again, they're going to have a little bit different upgrades and whatnot, but still, for the price point, I think this is really hitting a sweet spot for a lot of people that have maybe been on the fence about getting a performance-based truck. And hopefully this will help them take that jump. We're all about getting new people into more parts of the hobby, or just getting into the hobby for the first time. Maybe somebody out there has been looking at getting into crawling, but they know they want something more performance, not necessarily scale, but the price point's just holding them back. Well, this might actually get them into the hobby, and we always need new people in the hobby. So awesome to see an offering like this. I can't say enough about how excited I am about it. Shocks feel pretty good. So I guess we'll start with this Hobby Wing Fusion, which is pretty cool that we're getting a Hobby Wing already in the truck. Okay, it's an 1800 kV brushless motor. It's a 540 size, so it's a little bit smaller than a 550, but you need that to try to get it as low as they've gotten it. It's got the motor and ESC built in there, so it's a 2-in-1 combo. Goes over to our receiver here. This 2-in-1 combo is 2S and 3S capable, which is awesome. It also has FOC technology, which stands for Field Oriented Control. So that is super cool. We're running on an XT60, and we got a little power switch right there. Looks like we have a programming port right there. So you can easily plug in a programmer to adjust things, which is always good. If you know me and you know my channel though, I am all about Bluetooth and apps. So hopefully at some point we'll get to a point in the RC world where all of the ESCs come Bluetooth. That'll be awesome. But I think we're a ways out from that. But this should be easy enough to program, so that's cool. We can move up here to our servo, talking about the electronics. This is called a hex fly. Now this guy here is a powerful Metal Gear waterproof servo. It's got 35 kilograms of torque out of the box and capable of up to 42 kilograms of torque if you're running on 8.4 volts. So that's good. It's also got a metal servo horn there. So that's nice, aluminum servo horn. They really tried to improve the center of gravity on this guy, again, by lowering that motor and giving this low center of gravity chassis. Nice LCG carbon fiber chassis. Looks like its shock towers are separate, so that's nice if you want to adjust your shock towers. It's all 3mm carbon fiber on all the carbon fiber components. The rails, shock towers, motor mount, all held together by red anodized washers, which look super sharp. We really dig that. And then these cool braces here. Check these braces out. They're like these aluminum milled, just cool looking design elements, especially since this is all exposed. It's a half cab, right? So that looks really good with all the bracing and the red washers and yeah, it's all anodized, so very cool. The motor, talking about that low COG, is 6mm lower than the previous Redcat. So the regular Redcat Ascent is a little bit higher on that motor. But one of the things that does is it means it's going to be very difficult here to run a 4-link suspension with a 4-link uppers. Right now we're running a 3-link. I don't know if you can see in there. Just a single link on the side by the motor. The motor sits very low and almost hits the lower links as we already are. So getting a 4-link on there is going to be difficult, and then also getting a servo on axle is going to prove to be pretty difficult, I think. But maybe somebody will come up with something. But if you're trying to keep it really low, this is probably how it's going to have to stay as far as your geometry and servo on chassis versus servo on axle. Okay. It's got these chassis mounted kind of low profile simple bumpers. Essentially, they're just kind of like these metal plates, which are great though because it gives you an amazing approach angle and departure angle. Very cool that they provided us metal bumpers that have winch cutouts, so we can put a front or rear or both, if you really wanted to run both, winch running through there with a fair lead. So I dig that as well. Very cool. And then onto this kind of simple transmission here. Again, super easy to access all your gears. You can pop your rear drive shaft off, pull these 2 screws out, and this whole rear plate comes off where we can change our underdrive, which is really sweet because again, you don't have to pull the whole transmission out. Also, it's divorced, obviously, the transfer case versus up here at the motor where the spur is. So you're completely separated there, which is good because it allows you kind of modularity in the system and gets everything really low, and it's super simple, right? You don't want anything complex. A lot of comp crawlers, they don't run stuff like 2 speeds and things of that nature just because it's more parts to break and it's extra weight on your truck. It also creates more slop. This guy has very little slop in the drivetrain. I don't know if you can see it, but between going forward and backwards, this thing barely moves. So that's very good. We dig that. It is on portals, which do have a little bit of slop, but again, they're portals. They always do. But that's about all you got, which is pretty good, especially if you hold the drive shafts so the drive shafts aren't moving. That's it. Okay, so I definitely dig that. Again, forward mounted motor just to help with that 60-40 weight distribution, which we will weigh this a little bit later. We'll put it on our 4-corner scale and weigh it and make sure that we got some good weight bias there. All the gears for the transmission and portal gears are Mod 1, 32 pitch. We have a spur gear here with a little bit of a slipper on there, so you can adjust the slipper. And this guy already has some upgrades. If we flip it over, talking about those portals, there's brass on the portals, guys. 46 grams per portal for a total of 92 grams up front, which is awesome. Outer portal covers on the front axles are brass. The rears are not. We've got some really good turn radius here or steering angle. For Part of that's due to this low profile CNC aluminum diff cover. They tried to make it as thin and low profile as possible, just to help get you that really good steering angle. Also, the spools that are in here, which we will open up, are CNC machined spools, so that's good. We're running on some 1.9 blackout wheels. These are Redcat wheels. These are plastic, but they look really good, and they are multi-pieced. I will show you a photo over here of all the different pieces to the wheel. Very cool. And then we're running this tire here, which is also obviously a 1.9, but it's a 4.7. They are vented, and they feel pretty grippy. I do like the tread pattern, but everybody has their own personal preference on wheels and tires, so I understand why they went plastic on the wheels, because most people are going to switch them out. Do like these red anodized wheel nuts, freaking sweet. All the red accents are just cool. I really like that kind of stuff. It makes it feel very detailed and that they have good attention to detail. Next are these shocks. These are performance shocks, and they are all aluminum. They are oil filled, obviously, and they have been tuned from the factory, so they should feel pretty good here. The front shock does have a soft internal spring. The rear has no internal spring. Okay, so you're gonna have a little bit of difference in the front versus rear, but very cool that you can adjust that if you want to pull the springs out of the front or add some springs to the rear. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with the internal springs, I don't think. Oh wait, those might have been the springs that came in our extra. I bet you they are. I was thinking maybe they had something to do with in here, but nope, they're gonna be the rear internal springs. Good stuff. Also, all metal bearings all throughout the whole thing, so that's good. All the links, all metal, very good. No plastic there. And looks like we have a plastic skid and sliders. So yeah, man, overall, I cannot wait to get this thing and run it on some rocks. Just to bring the remote back over here, since it's kind of the last thing to talk about. It's a pretty basic RTR remote. It is 4-channel, so that's good. You've got your channel 4 here and your channel 3 here. Also, there's an LED button. I'm not sure if that's LEDs on the remote. Probably. Probably not LEDs on the truck. Obviously, there's no LEDs on this particular truck. But we also have our steering reverse, throttle reverse, our bind button, steering trim, throttle trim, and our steering endpoints. It also has removable rubber grips, so if you want to pull these rubber grips off, you can. They'll come right off. You could swap them out maybe for some different grips. I don't know. They point that out, that these are removable. Maybe there's different colors they'll offer, which could be really cool. Get some red grips, or again, just maybe some of the thicker or thinner grips, so people can adjust for their hand size. And really, that's about it. Feels like your kind of typical RTR. Oh, you know what? I know what this LED is for. There's an LED on the front, so you can actually light up your way a little bit. I don't know how bright it is. We'll have to see. Let's get some batteries in this thing so we can check this stuff out. Bam. And then, yep. Little LED light there to light our way. It's not the brightest. Well, we're really bright in here in the room, so you're not going to see it a ton. But if it's dark outside, should help a little bit. We don't have a ton of larger scale batteries. Most of them are like 5,000 2S and 3S batteries, 5,000 plus. We do have this little guy, a little 3S. However, I think it's going to be a little too big. Remember, our body comes to here. So if we were to throw this on here, that's about where we get it. Now, that could work. It is pretty covered by the body. So we could run that 3S in there, 2200. But we've also got these little guys. This is just a little 1500 pack. This is a 1500 pack. They're on Dean's plugs, but these guys will probably work a little better just as far as weight and keeping it all over the skid plate so we're not exposed, because you don't really want your battery exposed. If you're hitting on rocks and stuff, it's a good way to damage a battery. I don't really like the way this strap is. Actually, I'm going to reverse this strap. Let's reverse this strap. All right. Now our strap goes in versus out, which I kind of like that better. I do wish these strap mounts were a little farther forward. This is not really able to hold the battery a ton. Definitely would be better forward, but yeah, well, these are molded into the skids too. So, I mean, it's not like you're moving these body mounts. These skids are part of the body mount. So that's kind of odd. They chose to put that there. I guess the screws are there, but they still could have moved it forward. I don't know. It's kind of awkward. Maybe I'm missing something. Tell me in the comments below if I'm missing something, but it just seems not really ideal. It's probably fine. Just make sure you're nice and super tight on there. You should be good. Okay, turn her on. Servo seems decent. Ooh, that's smooth. That's real smooth. Yeah, buddy. Wow, that's great, guys. Look at that spur just barely turning there. Wow. Plenty of wheel speed. That's a pretty good turn radius as well. I'm digging that. This thing is going to be a blast. All right, so let's see if we put our body on here. What we're looking like. Yeah, we're all covered. Wires are able to stay back. We're good. Now, before we really go drive it, I suppose we should open it up, make sure it's all greased, kind of check everything over, and show you what it's all about. So we'll go ahead and open up an axle. We'll probably go ahead and we can do a front axle. We'll do the front. Open up, maybe we'll do both. I don't know. Show you the portals, show you the diff, and then we'll show you the transmission or the transfer case. I do love that it's got external receiver in case you want to switch over to your higher end remote. If you've got a high end remote, you can do that. So you can use your own transmitter and receiver, which is awesome. Let's get into this though. Obviously a 7mm wheel nut with your standard 12mm hex. Nice red anodized hex. I dig that. There's those brass knuckles or portal covers. Pretty slick. Let's go ahead and open that up. These guys here are 1.5mm. Two more. So you have the 4 main ones and then 2 up here on the top. There you go, nice and greased up. There's the bearings. Go ahead and measure this guy. So the threaded shaft is the 3.8. Where our pin sits is 5mm, almost. The actual shaft itself is almost 6mm. We're going to probably add a little grease in here. There is some, not a ton. Let's go ahead and pull this knuckle off. The king pins and the knuckles, 2mm. Looks like we are going to have to pull the steering link off here. And that nut on the back of the steering link is a 5.5. And there we are. Shaft is right at 6mm. 4mm on the flanged part or keyed part. We've got 3 screws holding in the bearing here in the knuckle. And then you can use an 050 to unscrew this little grub screw here. Then once you've got that little grub screw out, you're able to push out your pin here. Whoa, almost lost it. And there you go. She comes all apart. Whoa, everything's falling apart. Make sure you don't lose your pieces, guys. Jeez, noob. All right. So pretty straightforward there. Nice and easy. Now this is metal into metal. I'm kind of surprised this wasn't Loctited in there. I think we're going to throw just a tiny bit of Loctite on there. We like to Loctite everything that goes metal into metal. Don't Loctite things that go into plastic though. Plastic usually holds screws just fine. You don't need to Loctite it, just don't over tighten so you don't crack anything. We're just using some blue thread locker. Again, not a lot, just a little, just to help it make sure it doesn't back out, because this is not something you want backing out. Just make sure you're nice and flat on both sides, your pin, and then give it a good little snug. Again, don't over tighten, let the Loctite do the work. And ta-da. And to grease this guy up, we just use some marine grease, some 2,4-C with PTFE. I'm sure there's other stuff out there. Tell me down below what you like to use. I'm sure we're going to get tons of udder butter and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have any of that. If they ever want to send us some to use, we will gladly use it, but this is what we have, so this is what we use. Just use a little bit in here. Get it all nice and smooth. And like I said, no Loctite on these screws that are going back into your knuckle because it's a plastic housing, and Loctite will destroy it unless it's plastic safe Loctite, which you can use, but you don't need to. Again, plastic holds screws pretty good. They usually just back out of metal when it's metal on metal from vibration and whatnot, but when you're going into plastic, you're good. Just don't over tighten. Worst case, you can use like CA glue or, again, plastic safe Loctite, something like that. But yeah, it should be golden there. You do have metal bushings in here. Make sure you don't lose those. And we'll get this guy back together. We're going to go ahead and do the other knuckle, and then just to grease it up and Loctite our pin there, and then we're going to go ahead and do the rear to show you that. And then we'll open up the diff. We'll open up the rear diff. Now this is a pretty simple setup, so there's not a lot you can really mess up, but I always do tell people that when you're putting stuff back together, always kind of test for binding along the way. So when we put our portal axle back together, or portal housing back together and tightened it down, we check to make sure that nothing felt like it was binding up. And when we do this knuckle here, once we're screwed down, we're going to make sure our knuckle moves nice and free. And that way, see, we're nice and free there. That way, you don't just put the whole thing together. Say we took it all apart, greased it all up, put it together, and then we try to check for binding. We're like, why is it binding up? Why is the motor getting hot? Why is my steering feel kind of tight? Servo's heating up, or I burned up a servo. This lets you check that stuff along the way. That way, if you do have an issue, you know exactly where the issue is. It's in our portal housing, or we over tightened our knuckles, or we forgot our bushing, and we went in and tightened it down. Now the knuckle's tight. If you don't check it along the way, you may not notice. And then what ends up happening is you find that binding or have a bigger issue, and you've got to take everything apart to figure out where that binding occurred. If we forgot our bushing here and screwed it back down in there, and it was binding right here, we would know, well, it's right here. We just tested. So always test everything along the way. And I know it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times I see people have an issue, and it's because they have binding somewhere when they put new links on or change something in their, put overdrive or underdrive in their portals, stuff like that. And they just don't know where the binding is, and it takes them forever to figure it out. So I just like to point that out. Make sure you test along the way. One upgrade that I think we're going to be looking for is aluminum knuckles here. These knuckles seem like they'll be fine, but knuckles always seem to be kind of a weak point. Our C-hubs are pretty beefy, so I'm not too worried about that. But steering links in the knuckles tend to be kind of weak spots sometimes, so we'll definitely look forward to some upgraded aluminum knuckles, but these are going to be great until we get there. This is a nylock nut that's on here, so you shouldn't have to Loctite this. In fact, I probably wouldn't. I'd recommend against Loctiting it. It could destroy the nylon in the nylock. Also, if you get Loctite on the plastic knuckle here, you could be in for a bad time, because even just the fumes from Loctite can degrade the plastic. we actually had some Lexan wheels that were like clear Lexan wheels, and we Loctited the nuts and barely put any Loctite. I mean, we barely put any Loctite in there, and the fumes caused the entire Lexan face to crack on all of the wheels. It was super sad. All right. Let's go ahead and get this other side done, and then we'll head to the back. We got this side all greased up. It looks pretty good from the factory, but like I said, we like to make sure it's nice and greased. And then you can access, we didn't take the whole thing apart, but you can access your grub screw right here. You don't have to take your entire portal apart just to get to that grub screw. And it's in there pretty good. I'm not saying you need to do this. We're just kind of OCD. And so we want to make sure we don't lose anything. But it's already in there pretty tight. So you're probably going to be totally okay. But again, we just like to double check things. That's our nature. There's the rear. It's a little different. We have this keyed gear. Again, they are greased up, but we're going to add some. Pull this out real quick and give it a look. Okay. I did want to point out that the C-hubs and the axle, as well as the portal housings, the inner portal housings and the axle are all one piece, right? So these are not removable or clockable in any way. It's all a solid piece of axle housing, and the C-hubs as well. Okay, just to point that out. Now, as far as our axle shaft here, we should be able to just pull this guy out. There we go. It's pretty beefy. The axle shaft itself, the largest, thickest part is almost 6 millimeters. Then we drop down to a 5 millimeter, and then the key again is a 3 millimeter. Okay, this key, the key that goes into the diff, is 4 millimeters. So 3 on the portal side and 4 on the diff side. Let's go ahead and leave this guy out, take this other side out, and then we'll open up the diff. The diff is held on with 6 screws. They're the same size screws that are on the portal housing, so you don't have to worry about that getting mixed up. They're the exact same. Pull this guy off. There we go. That's nice and greased up in there. That's good. And then we should be able to pull this guy right out. There's our pinion. Looks pretty beefy. It's a 1.5 millimeter screw on there. .11 tooth on the input shaft or output shaft, however you want to look at it. There's our spool. I'm kind of curious if they have, I don't know again about much of what Redcat's got out there or aftermarket support for Redcat. I know there's good support for sure, but I don't know what kind of parts are out there. I'm curious if there's an open diff out there that you can drop in here if you wanted to. You wouldn't want to open diff obviously in a crawler, but I'm just curious if these are like the same axle housings as the Ascent, the first Ascent. I kind of assume they are the same axle housings, but I can't quote me on that. And then if you're going to do like a trail rig, maybe open diffs, but like open diffs on the rear, front, I don't know, which is better. Open diffs on the rear is better. Probably open diffs on the front. I don't know. Tell me in the comments below, which is better for like trailing if you're going to have open diffs, rear or front? I feel like if you have open diffs on the rear, you're going to have better turning. But that might hurt you crawling quite a bit. Anyway, all right, let's get this guy backed in there. I don't think I'm going to grease this up. It's already pretty greased up. So we don't really need to add anything there. There's a good old chunk of grease right there. Just throw that on the pinion. Bam. You cannot flip the diffs here. So if you're going to do like a 6, not that you're going to do that with this truck, but if you're going to do a 6x6, you have to have a reverse rotation. You can't flip your diff. You have to go like this, right, to get it to reverse. Or if you had a reverse rotation shaft here, counter rotating shaft to prevent torque twist, you would have to flip your diff. And just while we're talking about that, this is not counter rotation. Both drive shafts run this way. So you could encounter a little torque twist. We'll see when we drive it, but the way it's set up, I highly doubt it. But that is a thing. We see it on the mini crawlers a ton. So Just wanted to point that out here. All right, let me get this guy back together, and then we'll dive into shocks. When you're putting your axle shafts back in and whatnot, again, when you're putting your axle shafts in and whatnot, obviously this is an offset diff, so your axle shafts are going to be different lengths. Same in the front. Just make sure you've got the correct one on the correct side. Don't try to put the shorty in on the long side and then wonder why it's not fitting. Definitely side dependent. Okay, guys? So while I was in the front diff here, checking the oil grease, which is fine, I wanted to show you the front steering link is adjustable, so you can unscrew a little bit. Let's see how much we have on there actually. But you would unscrew it just a little to get some toe out if you wanted some more toe out. Basically pushes your steering knuckles outward. And some people like that for crawling. Yeah, so it looks like there's a decent amount of threading on there. You can't go too far because you don't want to weaken it, but you could probably do 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters on each side to get you just that little bit extra toe out if you really wanted to. Let me go ahead and get this guy back together, and I'll give you a straight shot down on it to try to see, so that you can see how much toe we already have. Again, these link ends are plastic, the rod is metal. So it's probably kind of hard to tell from video, but it looks like our toe out on this guy is pretty zeroed out. It's pretty straight. So no toe out really at all. It almost looks like there's the tiniest bit of toe in, just a tiny bit. I don't have any way to measure that, but I don't know if you can see it there, but just a little bit. So that may be something you might want to adjust, but we're going to leave it the way it is out the box for now. I did want to point out that your anti-sway bar, your sway bar here, is a separate mount, so you could pull that off if you're trying to change things up in some way. That part comes off, as does the bracket on the side, obviously. Nothing hits when we compress, which is great. We're actually bottoming out on the shocks. It is very close to your servo horn, though. See your servo horn right here? And that upper truss. Actually, are we hitting on the servo horn? No, but it is close. And I can't even see light through it. So it might be just barely. No, you can see a little crack of light. A little crack of light right there. Oof, close. That is good though. I like that. Super precise. You're not really going to be able to lower it much more than that. There's also a lower link adjustment. So if you want to raise your lower link here, and that'll get your output shaft here angled up, your pinion angled up a little bit. It'll change your geometry a little, but it also pushes the upper portion. Actually, this one's going to push it down, so that's going to lower your pinion. Excuse me. Moving there from there will lower your pinion, which is not really what you want. Change your pinion angle. The way it's set up currently is pretty good, in my opinion. Would have been nice to have maybe some rear link truss adjustment. The upper link mounts on the rear axle and even on the front for the single link here. They are part of the axle housing. So if you wanted to put like a rear link riser, you'd have to have it attached somehow to this current link riser or link mount and raise it up to get any kind of anti-squat or anti-dive if you wanted to. Now, you probably don't need that. Generally, anti-squat, anti-dive are more for go fast. When you're at momentum, that's going to help kind of keep your front end down or, keep your rear end down, depending on how you're set up. But that's usually with actual momentum, not just while you're slow crawling. Some people think it does help a little bit with slow crawling, but it's kind of minimal. But like I said, you will have to have a different riser here. I wish they would have given us at least one adjustment point. So you've got an adjustment point here, and then one here and here. That would have been nice just for adjustment in general, forward and backward on our wheelbase, maybe a little bit. Because again, moving this link to here is going to push our axle back just a little and also clock it downward, which will actually push our wheelbase out because of our portals. Because the portals will turn. But yeah, cool that we've got adjustment. I love adjustment. This guy doesn't need a ton, so I kind of get it, but never hurts to have a little bit extra, I think. All right, let's go ahead and get a shock off. So I wanted to point this out because we were going to see if we could pull off a front shock easily. The front shock's screw is behind the knuckle here. So you actually have to pull the knuckle off to get to the screw for the lower mount on the shock. Our rears eye to eye at full extension. Going to be right at 90 millimeters. And at full compression, we're looking at right at 70, maybe 71, somewhere in there, 70, 71. Actually looks like 70 and a half at full compression eye to eye. Our ball joint's a little tight. Look at that. It's a little tight for a ball joint. It's not like crazy tight, but a little bit. So I'll show you a little trick here that should work on this. The upper ball joint's totally fine. Just this lower is kind of tight. Anyway, fronts are basically 69, 70 at full compression. And again, opened up, they're a little shorter, probably right around 85. And don't forget, that's likely because the internal spring on the rear has been removed, so you get a little bit more extension, right? Whereas on the front, there's an internal spring in there to kind of help kind of control that. All right. Now I was going to open this up. I just realized we don't have the correct shock oil. We have shock oil for the minis. So I don't want to open this up and get the oil out and then have to put new oil in. Why don't you put down in the comments below what weight and viscosity oil you would use? Like I said, the only oil we have is 20 weight, 200 CST, 195 CST. We need to get some oil for the big guys. We just don't do a lot of big guys. So tell me what oil we should get for our shocks down below. These are pretty smooth though. I'm gonna tell you right now, these guys feel really good. The only thing, like I said, is this ball joint. So let me show you a little trick there. Some people will use like a ball joint reamer. You can also just use some pliers. Now it depends on the plastic, so we should be good here, I hope, but you can just compress on this plastic just a little bit. Don't squeeze it super hard. Just kind of compress down on it. Make sure your ball joint's nice and centered. Give it a little squeeze, a couple of squeezes here and there. Basically trying to compress the plastic into the ball joint, and it should loosen it up a little bit. Yeah, we're already starting to feel a little better there. Don't want to do it too much. Don't want to do it all real hard all at once, because then you're just asking to crack the plastic. Depending on the plastic, I've seen it happen where if you just squeeze too hard at once, it's going to do it. But if you do just a little bit of squeezing at a time, test it. A little bit of squeezing at a time. You can just rotate around the ball joint. Oh yeah, way better. Look at that, way better. Okay, so that's something I would highly recommend doing. It'll help your suspension loosen up a little bit, reduce some of that binding. It might feel a little bindy in there. Definitely just makes things smoother. I'm going to get this guy on here. We're going to pull the other side off just to check it. I might end up pulling the fronts here. I don't know. It's hard to tell. You can kind of just move it with your finger. Oh, they're a little tight. Maybe next time we take this apart, if we do any maintenance on it, we'll check on those guys. But the rear is easy enough, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. On this upper shock mount, I am going to do just a little bit of Loctite since we're going into metal here. Don't overdo it. You're going through this carbon fiber, but just a little bit on there to help kind of hold it in. Nothing crazy. And it just also means that we don't have to over tighten it. I've seen these trusses, these little cross members, strip out pretty easily before. Not on these, but just on the minis and on other trucks in general. So being able to get it in there nice and snug without feeling like I have to tighten it down a ton, and then just let the Loctite do its job. Oh yeah, these uppers are really nice in that regard, the upper ball joints. Just this bottom one's tight, super tight. All right. Nice and smooth. One thing I wish these shocks had were adjustment collars. I'll be honest, I'm just kind of a fan of having slight adjustment. You can always shim these if you need to shim it just forward a little bit, just to give yourself a little more preload, essentially, if you wanted preload. The correct answer, though, is to have the correct spring rates in your shock, right? So this is not, I'm not saying this is not correct, because it's a good way to do it. But personally, I like to tinker and I like to adjust spring. It's easier to just adjust your spring rate or your preload through an adjustment collar. So that's just one thing I kind of wish these shocks had. But like I said, they feel really good how they are. So we probably won't be changing them anyway. Yeah, they do feel smooth. Super smooth, super smooth. Right, I guess we open up this guy here to show you about the different underdrives. So this is a pretty cool little setup here where you're able to just remove this plate and the drive shaft, and then you have access to your underdrive gears, which is pretty sweet. You can actually pull it off without pulling off your drive shaft, but obviously, oh, maybe not. Not that you would need to, because you got to pull your drive shaft off either way, because the gear's attached to it. Now that's pretty tight in there, so it might be easier if you remove one of the links, or at least an upper link maybe here. Let it kind of drop back a little, because it is pretty tight on there. It is a 3-piece drive shaft. Yep, there you go. Now these gears in here are plastic. But changing your underdrive is as simple as that. This guy comes with an 18 tooth there, and this guy here is a 26 tooth. But yeah, it's literally 3 screws, your drive shaft, and the 2 that are holding on the cover, and you're good to go. There's inside of our transfer case. Seems okay. Probably want to grease this up a little bit more, but it's plastic gear, so not a huge deal. One thing you definitely want to be careful of is not to lose your pin that goes inside here. You have a little shaft pin that goes in, and you just got to be careful to not lose that guy. Simple as that, man. Crazy. And the drive shaft's a little tight here. Yeah, just like a millimeter or two, it would go on much easier. But we kind of have to force it unless we want to pull off a link. Well, we might still have to. Oh, you can do it. So, yeah, doable. You're just kind of forcing it. Make sure you do it before you put your screws back in your transfer case, just because you kind of need a little bit of play in there for it to go on. All right, get the screws back in. Now, while the shaft itself and this little kind of cover is plastic, the CVD in there, as well as what the screw goes into, is metal. So it's not all plastic, obviously. This joint is metal. Now, if I didn't mention this before, this is a plastic 56 tooth spur, and then our motor pinion down in there is aluminum, and it's a 10 tooth pinion. They're 32 pitch. Now that's all I think we really need to open up and show you. This is just a bearing carrier right here. Nothing special there. And then you kind of saw in there, there's 2 more gears in there, but it's going to be basically the same. If you need to remove them though, you'll have to remove probably the whole transmission just to make it easy. And there's a screw down in the bottom down here that makes it a little hard to get get those gears out. So you would have to remove it, but that's easy enough. It removes with just these 3 screws on the bottom and you're good to go. And before we move on to the electronics, I just wanted to point out there's a spot here for a winch servo. So it looks like you can throw a winch servo in there. You will need a low profile servo for sure, or you'll have to space it up just because you don't want to be hitting on your steering and sway bar. But there is a mount there, so that is nice. Like I said, you've got holes in the metal bumpers, both front and rear for fair leads. Pretty cool. All right, let's talk about the electronics a little bit here and the receiver ESC. So all this information I'm about to give you is in the online manual. I'm going to also post it over here or over here. And you can pause the video and read it if you'd like. That way it's just easy to get. We'll also put a link to the manual down in the description below so you have that. With this remote and this ESC that's built into the motor here, you are able to do quite a few things. Again, it is a 4-channel, so that's nice. But you're able to set all of your reverses for the throttle and steering channels, as well as your trims and endpoint adjustments on all 4 channels. For those, you just have to go through some different button presses. There's basically 4 modes. It's called mode switching, and that mode switching lets you go through and change the steering trim to adjust your channel 3, or your channel 4, depending on which you're trying to adjust. There's also a fail-safe included for if your batteries die or you lose signal of some kind. And then there is a beginner mode if you want to kind of turn everything down, basically slow your steering rate down as well as the truck's overall throttle rate. It basically cuts all that down to about 50%. And if you ever loan it to somebody or something weird happens and you feel like you're in beginner mode, all you gotta do is hold channel 3, turn it counterclockwise, and turn it on. And that'll switch you from beginner mode to normal mode or normal mode to beginner mode. By default, obviously, it's in normal mode. Now, the motor in ESC, there are a 2-in-1 combo here. It is a 40 amp continuous current, 2S, 3S capable. Already mentioned that. You can also run nickel metals if you want. It's got a 7.4 continuous current BEC at 4 amps. And it's 36 millimeters diameter, 58.1 millimeters in length, and 201 grams. That includes the wires and the connectors and the weight. It does have a programming port right here on the power switch, essentially. You'll be able to plug in a programmer to there. It is a 4-pole motor at 1800 kV, with the drive shaft being 3.175 or 16.5 millimeters. It is IP67, waterproof or splash resistant, dust resistant, whatever. So you can get it a little wet. I probably wouldn't completely submerge this guy. It's really more splash proof and dust proof. And again, it's got FOC, which is field oriented control, which is a really cool feature that when you hit up against resistance, the ESC senses that and it gives the motor more power or torque to maintain the same rotation or same RPM once you hit that resistance. It's kind of like a cruise control. Basically, you're able to hold your throttle and doesn't matter what you come up against, your truck's speed or power coming from the motor will maintain. Whereas in like a brush system, you got to give it more throttle to kind of jump over a rock or push over that brake over on resistance, which also makes the truck very jumpy. So you'll give it a bunch of throttle, and then when you brake over that resistance, you jump because there's no more resistance, right? So FOC kind of helps minimize that, makes it a much smoother crawl. Some people love it. Some people like that traditional feel of resistance up against when you go up against rocks. But either way, this guy does have FOC. I think it's a very cool feature, and it makes crawling a lot more enjoyable. If you ever need to calibrate this system for basically your neutral position, you're able to do that. It does come calibrated from the factory, so you shouldn't have any issues there. But if you do have issues, right over here, we've got how to calibrate it. Pretty simple. And along those same lines is setting up your ESC's throttle range and calibration as well. And we can show you all that information. Here you go. Now, unfortunately, the ESC settings do need to be programmed through the port. You can't actually do them through button presses. You can basically pick up a Hobbywing programmer box pretty cheap, if not free, from some hobby stores, just because they're everywhere. You're basically able to change your cutoff voltage, your motor rotation, your drag brake force, and your drag brake rate. So we'll put up the table here so you can kind of see the defaults are intermediate for your low voltage cutoff, counterclockwise for your motor rotation, a level 3 drag brake force, and a level 3 drag brake rate. Now the difference between drag brake force and drag brake force is basically how much force the motor's going to put against movement when you're in the neutral position. So if you're giving it throttle and you let go and go back to 0, you're basically going to have that amount of force preventing your wheels from spinning or tires from spinning, right? So crawling, you kind of want a higher drag brake. If you're trailing, you want a lower drag brake. Drag brake rate is the rate at which it goes from your throttle to the locked drag brake, essentially. From when you're giving it full throttle and you just let go of the throttle, how quickly does it lock up that brake? Basically slowly getting to your full brake force. If you're trailing, you probably want that really low. That way when you let off, it still kind of rolls a little bit and then comes to your drag brake level. If you're crawling, you probably want it a little higher. That way you get that immediate lock. So as you're crawling up something steep and you have to let off, it doesn't just roll back. That way your drag brake is like not engaged. That way your drag brake is engaged as soon as you let off, so you're not slowly rolling back and then the drag brake catches it, right? It'll slowly let it go and then your drag brake will engage. So you'll want to set that high for drag brake rate if you're doing some hardcore crawling. But out of the box, it comes 3 and 3, and I'm sure that's probably going to be fine for most people, but if you want to tweak and tune it, that's how you do it. I guess that's pretty much everything we need to show here. Let's go ahead and weigh this guy finally. I know you guys have been waiting. We'll go ahead and weigh it out and show you its bias. All right, we're all zeroed out here. Let's go ahead and drop it on. We've got our 1500 battery in here. We didn't use our adapter because most people are going to have the correct plug. But boom, look at that. Man, we are right off the bat 60-40 on our weight bias. That's pretty sweet. We're at 51-49 essentially. You might run a smaller battery if you're trying to be, super serious about comping. We're a little heavier on this side because of that, or you could try to counterbalance that with just a little bit of weight. I mean, it's pretty dang close though to an exact 50-50. Looks like we're what? Let's let it settle for a second. Maybe 35 grams-ish. Not much at all. 25 plus 18. A little more than that. Almost 50 grams. Almost. But again, use a smaller battery, and that probably will not come into play as an issue at all. Let's try this battery here. Just curious. Yeah, just a little lighter. But again, that's pretty nuts for an out-of-the-box, ready to run, right? 60-40 front to rear, and basically 50-50 side to side. Pretty sweet. These are really small. It's a 2-in-1, so the heavy part of the ESC is in the motor versus being over on the side here. So there's not a lot of weight on this side because of that, which is, what's going to cause it to be a little bit heavier on that side. You can see without the battery, we're right at 50-50, and we're like an 8-gram difference between there. So pretty much any battery over 8 grams is going to put a little bit more weight on that side, but it is what it is. Again, with the ESC here in the motor versus on the slider here, it's going to be a little bit lighter on this side. The motor is biased to this side, so that does help a little bit, but then we do have the servo over here. If you put a Wint servo in here, it's probably going to help balance that out. Either way, we're talking about under 50 grams worth of difference, depending on the kind of battery you have, but overall, freaking sweet. Oh, we don't have the body on it either. So once the body's on there, let's get our battery back in, and then we'll get our body on it. Now we're at a 61-39. So get a little bit more there. Yeah, and basically 50-gram difference in the battery. All right, guys, pretty sweet. We need to go drive this thing. I cannot wait to get it on the rocks. And I figured I'd show you how bright the LED is for this guy. I've got a little bit of backlighting as well, but pretty dark in here. Bam. It works. It's like a little keychain flashlight, but that's nice if you need to work on your truck in the dark, or you just need to see a little bit. Not work on your truck in the dark, but like if you're out crawling and it's a night crawl and you need to check on something or find a body clip you dropped, this might help. A little bit easier than pulling out your phone or just using it while you're driving. That way you only have this in your hands and nothing else, and you can kind of see a little bit. Pretty good. Definitely has some brightness to it. I dig it. Fun little feature. Yes, sir.
You like it so far?
For the price, it seems damn good. Well, there we have it, the Redcat Ascent Fusion. This thing is awesome. We're loving how it performs. Again, for the price, if you're looking to get into something of this style, man, I don't think you can beat it. This thing is, it's fun for sure, and that's really what it's about. It performs really well. We ran it only on 2S. We didn't have any small enough 3S batteries, but we're going to get one because we definitely want to run this guy in 3S. It's got plenty of wheel speed on 2S. I mean, you saw in the video, it was able to handle lines pretty well. Really good slow crawl modulation, obviously, with the Hobbywing Fusion, and then plenty of wheel speed. It's freaking awesome. We've even got some rocks still stuck in our bead there. I did want to point out there is a little bit of bump steer in here. The panhard bar and the drag link are pretty close to parallel. You can see how they run down the front there. They're pretty much at the same angle, except this guy does have the bend to clear the axle for drive shaft and link. Not drive shaft, but the upper link. But I think it is pretty parallel, but we do have a little bit of bump steer. Now, the front is limited. Remember, we got internal springs in the shocks, so maybe if it dropped down further, you would see more, but I'll go ahead and kind of show you. That's the amount of bump steer you have. It's not a ton, but there is just a little bit. But again, if it was dropping down further because we took the internal springs out or something, you'd have a little bit more, because obviously the more it moves, the more you're going to get that. But not too bad. They really beefed up this bracket over here, so that's good. If you happen to break loose your CVD or U-joint pins in there, I show earlier, and I mentioned that you 100% need to Loctite them. If you break them loose, they're in there pretty good. But if you're one to go through everything and take it apart and whatnot, 100%. Loctite and snug. And if you're using blue Loctite, again, super snug. I mean, you got to tighten it down. We did have one fall out, but we did Loctite it. Just I don't think we snugged it down quite enough, and I don't think we put enough Loctite. So either super tight with some blue Loctite or use some red Loctite. Again, they're just the pins that go into your CVD or U-joint. CVDs, U-joints. So U-joints. Other than that, guys, I'm digging this thing. I like it a lot. I think the quality is definitely there. They've stepped up their game quite a bit, I think. And it just looks great, right? Like as far as the anodized look, the 60/40 weight bias is awesome. Helps it handle really well. You can see we already we beat up our body quite a bit. And most of this is not from rolls, because it did not roll hardly at all. We were able to keep it on all fours pretty good, but we were going through some side hilling and some kind of cavey looking, not caves, canyon-like stuff. We're kind of just scraping along as we're going. But yeah, overall, pretty sweet. The tires seem to perform really well. I think they'll do a lot better with some inserts, because they're pretty floppy. So some inserts or some dual stages, whatever foam you prefer or insert you prefer, I think will really help this guy a lot. It's not super heavy, so you don't need really stiff foams, because it is a pretty light truck overall, which is good. That's what you want. You just want that 60/40 down low, right? But other than that, I think it's going to perform fantastic right out the box for you. Super excited to see this offered. I know there's a ton of other videos out there, but hopefully none like ours where they dive as deep as we did. And yeah, that being said, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. All those things really help support the channel and the videos that we produce, being able to bring you this content. It is a ton of work to bring the longer form content. We could bring you 15-minute box opening videos. That's easy. But to tear it all open and show you, doing all that, just takes time. It's not hard. It just takes a lot of time. So I really hope that you're able to help support the channel with those things. And if you really want to get involved in the channel and help support, we do have channel members. Check that out right over here. The channel memberships, basically, you guys get to see videos early before anybody else does with no ads. There's also sometimes member-only videos, like behind the scenes, just kind of real quick videos that I'll shoot, no editing, stuff like that, just to, here's what we're doing this week, or look at this mess that's over here, a pile of stuff. So definitely check that out if you want to be a channel member. There's a bunch of different tiers, and you get perks based on those tiers. You also get priority replies to your comments. I try to reply to every comment on the channel, but as we grow, I'm not going to be able to do that, and channel members will definitely have priority. We also have swag if you want to help support through swag. We don't really make any money on the swag, maybe $1 or $2 just to help with the price fluctuations that this company has. They ship directly to you. We don't touch the product at all. I just wanted to offer it for people that want to get something with our logo and branding and stuff like that, and they want to help support by showing off to their friends that they watch the Shop Mini RC. Again, if you're new to the channel, we do mostly smaller scale stuff, whether it's crawling, racing, or bashing. It's usually all smaller stuff, 16 scale and smaller, but we do occasionally like to show off cool stuff that we think that people need to see for the larger 10th scale stuff and whatnot. So definitely check it out if you have small scale stuff. And again, I just want to express how much I appreciate everybody for watching. This was a long video for sure, but if you made it all the way to the end, tell me down in the comments below your favorite thing about this truck. And why don't you put down in the comments below, the Redcat has gone nuclear. So I know you watched the whole video, so I know you made it to the end. All right, guys, make sure you get out there and build something awesome, build a car, build a course, build a community to run all that stuff with, and then race, crawl, bash, smash it, crash it, bash it, all that good stuff. Don't break the expensive parts. Peace.